Hi, I'm Stephanie Robinson, and in this video I am going to break down for you what a settlement agreement is and how you can get one. I have helped lots of people make the necessary strategic steps in going through with making an employment tribunal claim, with the aim of fundamentally and unapologetically getting a financial compensation or a cushion so that they can restart their lives. 3 students of mine in the last couple of months who've followed my training have got over £40,000 worth of compensation, and one got their initial offer increased from £7,000 of an offer to £20,000 just by following the advice and the approach that I map out so that they can move forward to an employment tribunal claim, but not necessarily with the intention of getting to an employment tribunal. You don't need a lawyer and you do not need to spend thousands of pounds. You just need some tenacity, some basic employment law knowledge and a great teacher, and I'm going to show you the steps of how to do that. But let's get back to explaining settlements. Settlement agreements are used much more often than you think. I personally think it's a secret that no one talks about. If you agree with me and you haven't heard about a settlement agreement until recently, please write secret in the comments below so I know that it's the general view from others too, and it's not just because I'm so long in the tooth in HR and I see them every day. And it is quite a new concept to you. If you write in secret, that'd be brilliant. The employee never tells anyone about their settlement agreements because that's what the settlement does. It pays for their confidentiality as one aspect of the settlement agreement. And the employer is not going to tell everybody because, well, then everybody's going to want paid to leave their employment too. But trust me, settlements are a good solution. Not many people will be happy with this video because I am going to tell you how and why you should get a settlement. The why is easy because trust me, when I say you really want to avoid at all costs a time-consuming, emotionally draining employment tribunal. But more importantly, because if you've been dreaming of investing in a property, paying off your mortgage, or just setting up your business, or perhaps just moving on with a bit of a cushion, this is what a settlement payment might give you. Now, I get it. If you've been treated unfairly, you feel like standing up for yourself and others, and that's completely legitimate. You should and you must. Don't compromise on your morals, but here's a question for you. Why can you not also be getting clarity on the unfair treatment by also getting a settlement? If you get a big enough settlement agreement, you will be changing the way things are done in your ex-employment. People will be learning and noticing that they cannot continue to work on that costly basis, unless you may be coming from an investment firm where it is slightly different. But if you don't get this option, what if you don't get the money offered to you? My student Sue, she got 12k from her settlement, and that meant she could invest in her new property business. And she didn't have to go to employment tribunal. She could have lost in the employment tribunal. She couldn't have made that new start that she dreamt of. But she also, through getting her settlement, got acknowledgement from her ex-employer. Acknowledgement that they had treated her unfairly. She was able to move on mentally knowing that although she didn't win that employment tribunal because she didn't go to the tribunal, they knew that they had wronged her. So she got some money, she didn't have to go through the pain and anguish of standing up as a witness, and she was able to go and do what she wanted to in her life. So I'm going to teach you what a settlement agreement is. I'm going to talk to you about the process of working through a settlement agreement. And lastly, I'm going to tell you how to manage your lawyer. And most importantly, there are fees through the settlement process, so you don't end up with a large bill to pay. So let's go to number 1. What is a settlement agreement? A settlement agreement is an agreement which terminates employment by giving an employee money in exchange for the employee not going to an employment tribunal. A settlement agreement normally covers a lot of legal jargon and employment laws and will normally reference your contract of employment, your start date, particulars, your salary, and it will in short be saying that the company, your employer, will pay you an X amount of money. It will also define your notice and any holiday payments. and it will say explicitly that you take this compensation payment and walk away, and you will forfeit your employment rights. For instance, the legislation that they will outline is discrimination and unfair dismissal legislation, and it's normally a schedule at the back of the agreement, and that agreement could be 12 to 15 pages. So now you understand the basic principles of a settlement, let's talk about the process. A settlement agreement is normally drafted by an employer, could be an employer solicitor or a HR professional, and handed to you, the employee, or it might be emailed directly to your solicitor. A settlement agreement normally comes after an off-the-record conversation or a without prejudice conversation. They're both the technical language for those conversations. And it's normally held with you, a HR manager, your manager, or it could be both. And you might and should be given an offer letter in that meeting. And sometimes an offer letter is bypassed, but the legislation is clear that you should be given at least 10 days to consider the settlement proposal made to you in writing, as well as being offered to be accompanied in any off-the-record conversation. Sometimes they bypass this, but that's what the legislation says. A key point to remember when you're considering that settlement offer, if that's you right now, is that you're absolutely free to refuse the offer. You do not need to take it. You do not need to end your employment. You might love your job and this has come straight out of the blue for you as a massive surprise and shock. And if that's the case, please don't be hasty. Ask for an extension to any deadline, or better still, refuse the proposal. Now, although the letter offer that you've been given and should have been given might spell out all of the proposed payments and the termination date, and probably will put a bit of pressure on you by giving you a deadline for a response to the proposal, it might also have a line which says that after a certain date, the proposal will no longer be on the table. Now, believe me when I say don't fall for it, it's a bit of a classic sales maneuver where they take that off the table so that you agree now, and I am 99% sure that they will still be prepared to pay you in a month or two should you decide that's the right thing for you. And things will be even more strained then, possibly, and they will be more than willing to reinstate the offer, and you might find that they even increase it. So, if you do decide to accept the offer, the next step is for you to take the offer to a solicitor. You could choose to go with a trade union official or a citizens advice official or a solicitor. And they should all be licensed and warranted to sign off that agreement. In most cases, a union rep or citizens advice bureau advisor might only be able to give you more limited advice than a solicitor, and they probably won't be able to tell you, and this is quite critical, if the settlement offer is good or not, and whether you might get more in a tribunal. They also might not be confident at negotiating on your behalf. So if you want a better settlement figure, better, clearer advice, it definitely might be worth going to a lawyer who you have confidence in. And you're probably thinking right now, Steph, can I initiate the settlement conversation? Well, yes, you can. However, tactically, in many situations, this might not be the right thing for you to do. If you are really serious about leaving employment and there has been an ongoing dispute where you really don't believe that you're at fault, then you might be able to suggest this more subtly. But my general advice to people that ask is it's not to initiate, play and not show your cards too soon. It's much harder for you when your employer knows that you do want to go rather than you're prepared to stay and fight them. Fundamentally, my rule of thumb in disputes is to optimise any settlement and don't make it easy for your employer. If you put the cards on the table and say you want a settlement, you might become cheap. Now, you know how I feel about lawyers, so my last point is about how to tactically manage your lawyer and your employer, and in most cases, make sure that you don't lose out on your settlement. But before I talk about and give you some guidance about how to manage your solicitor's appointment and their fees, you might want to go to the website hrsolver.co.uk and download my template, the template script of how to manage appointing a solicitor and manage the conversation with them on their fees. It's there, it's in the free resources section, and I do recommend, because you don't want to be creating a massive bill for yourself. Okay, so now in the UK, the employer will and should pay the employee's legal fees for a settlement agreement, normally up to a certain cap. And this cap should be around £300 plus VAT, and it could go up to about £500 plus VAT for reviewing the agreement. But if you're a more senior position, it's a more complicated case, vexatious situation, perhaps you've been off work for a while, absence with disability, it's more likely that a cap might be £1,000. And it could also be increased, this cap, if you are based in the south near London, where sadly, as we know, everything is more expensive. Irrespective, you need to make this cap clear when you speak to your appointed solicitor. And I would also check with them before you tell them the cap what their hourly rate is. Many people might go to their local family lawyer, who might be a one-man or one-woman shop of all legal things. And you can and you should go to someone you trust, but make sure you have a quality conversation with them about their rights and that they are routinely advising on employment law. And if this has been painful for you and it's a drawn-out process and you've maybe been off sick and it's long coming, bear in mind that your employer might be expecting you to say, right, I just want this done and I just want my money. However, if your employer is counting on this being your frame of mind, make sure your solicitor is going to manage this tricky circumstance and advise you that you might be able to get more compensation for signing the settlement agreement, and that they're prepared and willing to negotiate for more money on your behalf. And if this is the case and they're suggesting that their fees would have to go up as a result of getting you some more money, then be clear with them what the cap is and use that script that I mentioned earlier. So if the question then becomes, should I or my employer pay my solicitor more than the cap if they ask for more money, that does depend again on the complexity of the situation. But my answer would be not normally, unless they can clearly justify why they would deserve more and how much more time. Check the hourly rate of the solicitor and be clear to them that they are not authorised to spend any more money or time than the budget you've agreed with them when you appointed them. And that they need to get your express permission for more money or time, because your employer might turn around and say, well, I'm not paying for that. If they suggest that they will take a percentage of your settlement agreement, point blank refuse. It's not good legal practice. In terms of tactics, if you have got to this stage with your solicitor and the company's HR department talking, it's likely, very likely, that a deal's going to get done. And as I said before, if you want a settlement offer, I wouldn't always recommend you indicate that you're looking for this. Instead, the most compelling case for a HR person or a manager to agree and even perhaps suggest your circumstances are right for making a settlement offer is where you or the employee has written a strong, compelling appeal letter against either their dismissal or redundancy, and that they're pointing out the errors that the employer's made. In HRSolver training sessions, we break down and give you appeal templates explaining exactly how to make those compelling appeal letters, make sure you understand your rights, and you become that thorn in your employer's side so that they ultimately offer you that settlement that we've just talked about. However, it might be too late for a settlement offer. Often these are only offered whilst you're still in employment. So if you've been sacked or left because of your treatment, you might be wondering how the hell you can get a compensation payment without going all the way to a tribunal. Well, you still can, and I have the answer for you on that. On the HRSolver website, we have a training course which aims at getting you a settlement and early conciliation, the first step prior to an employment tribunal. However, this case might be wrapped up as a COT 3 agreement rather than the settlement agreement I've just talked about. So if you want to learn more about a COT 3 agreement, what it looks like, how it compares to a settlement agreement, watch this next video. And also, if you like this video, please subscribe so I know that you enjoyed it and that I can tell you when we have a new video out. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you very much.